Good morning, my friends. Good morning, my friends out there in Cathedral Land. Good morning to my friends throughout the world. Good morning to my friends from generations, especially my friends that I grew up with, and good morning to my mother. Especially to my friends that I grew up with and my mother, because I am this morning coming to you from Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, known as Mock Chunk. And a bit of a history lesson today for you, my friends. Particularly important is what is rooted here in this beautiful place. I want to tell you that I am in Mock Chunk Cemetery, which is a place where my grandparents are buried, my mother's parents, and my aunts and uncle and my great-grandparents are buried here. And this is right behind the house that I grew up in, and so much of my formation took place, honestly, in this place where we played as children and where my imagination was set free, and where I was rightfully reminded of the saints who have gone before and the foundation of faith on which my faith was planted, as all those good Anglicans came from Wales and England, and we're part of St. Mark's Church here. Also, I am standing right now in the place where the founders of St. Mark's Church and Nativity Church in Bethlehem are buried. This is the bit of the history lesson for you, so hang in there, kids. I'm going to turn this camera around so you can see how beautiful this cemetery is, and I am showing you the grave site of William Haysham Sayre, who came here to Mock Chunk and made a life working on the Lehigh Canal, and he began to hold services of morning prayer and evening prayer in his living room, and attracted around him other Anglicans, Episcopalians, and such was the founding. And as the coal industry spread itself down toward Bethlehem, the Sayers followed the path, and there they began the hard work of establishing lives and industry, and also the work of founding a church. So, a little bit of a tour. We say goodbye to William Haysham Sayre, his son Robert, of course, in Bethlehem, was also a key figure. He was Asa Packer's primary engineer, meaning the design engineer for the Lehigh Valley Railroad. And I'm taking you here down to the final resting place of Asa Packer. So it was Asa Packer who, actually began his life as a Presbyterian, born in Mystic, Connecticut. There is a story, I don't know if it's true or not, but there is a story that Asa Packer came here, worshipped with the Presbyterians, and was not satisfied with his welcome. So I'm sorry to any Presbyterians out there, but so he joined the Anglicans. So this is Asa Packer's resting place here. I'm showing you Lucy Packer Linderman's grave. Lucy Packer Linderman was Asa Packer's daughter, and I'm showing this to you because this is the resting place. Lucy Packer Linderman was the great-grandmother of Anne Shanley, who is a member of the Cathedral Church of the Nativity. And we're grateful to be able to share that, and I hope that someone who might have access to Anne might be able to show her that. I'm showing you this monument here. This is a little insight into the Dean's growing up years. This place, as I mentioned to you, was a place where we as children played. And this particular place is also a place that I would come to as a child, especially here. And I would write, and I would begin to use my imagination, Um, and so this is a sacred, sacred place for me, and I still come here to write. That's what I'm doing here today, quite frankly. But I'm showing you this monument also because as children, one of our traditions also was that on Halloween, All Hallows Eve, we would be sure to come into the cemetery where that statue up there of um, the angel, I think that's an angel, was particularly creepy to us, actually. So we would make that just part of the lore, and that continued when my children were little, and we would bring them to Jim Thorpe to trick or treat, and we'd make our visit here around the cemetery. But this is the resting place for all of the Packers here. Asa Packer, his wife Sarah, and his children. Those who made it into adulthood are all buried here. Robert Packer, his son, up in Sayre, to our friends up in Sayre, you know the Robert Packer Memorial Hospital up there. And at Lehigh University, the chapel is a memorial to Robert Packer. Then Mary Packer Cummings, who was extremely generous to St. Mark's Church and to many, and to Harry Packer, his son, whose home is next door to the Asa Packer mansion. So isn't this a beautiful place? And it is indeed a reminder of the shoulders and the light and the spark of love that spreads on and lasts on. And I'm showing you just over the embankment here as you listen to the chimes chime. You may not, Asa Packer's home is just through those woods right there. So his resting place is right behind his home. And just down at the bottom of this embankment, you'll see the bed, what's left of the bed of the switchback, what was the Switchback Railroad, which initially was used to get coal out of those mountains up there in Summit Hill and Lansford and beyond, down to the river, to the Lehigh River, and then along the canal system. And I'll remind you, that's where William Haysham Sayre, that's what brought him to Mauch Chunk. He worked there on the canal. Then Asa Packer figured out trains and got it down there quicker, and the Switchback Trail later became a tourist attraction, actually. You could ride the Switchback rail system, which was a gravity railroad. It would pull you to the top of the mountain and then release you on a pretty wild ride, I think. So, in this beautiful place, that is our tour for your morning, and I want to read to you a poem, and I'll leave you with this. This is a poem from The Bell and the Blackbird, David White, and mindful of the sacred ground in which we stand, and the faithful witness that has been passed on for generations, I leave you with this poem, Everlasting, and I'll do my best to read this with the justice that David White intends it. Between waves under the moon's light, after the passing of your smile into memory, when the last silence falls and your voice is no longer heard over the shadows of the earth, when the last silence falls and your voice is no longer heard over the shadows of the earth, when even the rain has stopped and my memory and my words and my arms and my hands that held you have fallen away with the tide of time, retreating forever into the beckoning everlasting dark. When everything we know has gone, when everything we know has gone, when my heart has stopped and yours no longer calls to mine through the distance of our time together. When everything we know has gone, when my heart has stopped and yours no longer calls to mine through the distance of our time together, others will live in this life and this love and this light that we have set in motion. Others will live in this life and this love and this light that we have set in motion, so that underneath that far off, yet to arrive and sheltering darkness, underneath the deep and almost touchable nearness of all things, underneath the breath of our words joining together for this privileged time of times, they will see in the distant pinprick stars the returning light of the dawn we made together. They will see in the distant pinprick stars the returning light of the dawn we made together. As we live in the light and the love of those who came before us, and who helped us to see and celebrate and recognize ourselves, and who brought us here, and whose light we now pass on, so that even at the end of time, even in what looks like silence, even in the quietest sense of disappearance, even in the quietest sense of disappearance, even in the far distance of times beyond our present understanding, we will be remembered in the way others still live. We will be remembered in the way others still live, and still live on, and still live on in our love. Beautiful poem. Beautiful place. Thanks for coming along on the tour. Blessings and peace to you, my friends. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.